Welcome, Shakil, to the conversations on collective well-being. So I'm going to go right into question number one and ask you to introduce yourself and how your work relates to collective well-being.
Okay. My name is Shakil Choudhury, and my pronouns are he and him. I'm the author of Deep Diversity, a compassionate scientific approach to achieving racial justice.
Compassionate approach. Okay. Can you talk about how you came to understand the importance of transforming dominant mental models in your racial justice and social justice work? What are some of the mental models that you see are critical to change, and what impact do you see them having?
Those are really big questions. I'd say this. The field I'm in around racial justice and equity, there are several things going on. So on one hand, you have a mainstream audience. Most people, the vast majority of people, that do not understand how racism in its systemic forms play out. People are still lost in the 1960s understanding of racism as a hate crime.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so that's one understanding, but the systemic is much more complicated. The systemic is becomes visible when we collect data and look at the experience of thousands and thousands of people. And then we can ask the questions like, wait a minute, why is it that women are systematically earning less than their male counterparts, whether it's frontline staff to Hollywood starlets? Why is it that people of color are systematically undertreated in the healthcare system as compared to their white counterparts? And why is it that in education, suspension and expulsion rates have something disproportionately to do with the identity of the student rather than their behavior?
Mm-hmm.
So on one level, what we're trying to do is get people to understand the patterns around system, because racism is a systemic problem, sexism is a systemic problem. So we have to help people become systems thinkers.
Mm-hmm.
So one is we're trying to change the mental model so that people can see what's hidden for them. The second part of the equation is that we have about 50 years of research that has helped create new mental models, namely anti-racism, anti-oppression frameworks that help people see the systemic problems. Mm-hmm. Now, those models are what we need to get to the mainstream. The challenge is that these mental models, like all mental models, are limited. Mm-hmm. And the challenge is that the mental models that we've made up in my field that, I've been trained in since the early 90s, there's a number of barriers in place. First of all, they're hyper intellectual. Mm-hmm. Use very complex terms from decolonization, privilege, over policing. We have so many different kinds of terms that becomes a bit of a barrier. Now, they're very important educational terms, but they're barriers, and it's become an insider language. And so that's a single barrier. The second barrier is that the mental models that we've created in racial justice and equity work have been created by academics, predominantly people who've been informed by a historical sociological analysis. That's important because it helps us understand how we got here. It helps us understand that there's a link between slavery, the Black codes, even the GI Bill, for example, and the challenges around race today, where we're looking at underserviced and over-policed and redlining, all these things that we recognize that history is alive today. So those perspectives are really helpful. What's missing in those perspectives is the emotional and the psychological. Yeah. And so it means that we sprinkle in a little bit of psychological now, just enough to make our sub-communities even more intimidating, because it's like we know what we're talking about emotionally and psychologically when really we don't.
Yeah.
And part of the reason I say that is because I've spent the last 15 plus years immersing myself in the psychological to understand why humans do what we do. I'm trained in trauma. I've been trying to understand how we put these pieces together. And so our limitations around the emotional psychological means we're less comfortable talking about emotions and way more better at critical analysis. So like that's my North Star is like, are we creating beloved community? What are the things we're doing to achieve beloved community? And right now, we don't have beloved community. We've got lots of cynical community.
Yeah.
So I'm saying, don't throw out any babies with the bathwater. I'm saying we need the academic. We need the ability to synthesize.
Yeah.
Ability to see the system patterns. We also need to learn to be in relationship with each other. We also need to be emotionally regulated. We also need to know when to push and when to step back. We need to discern what is fragility and what is people being genuinely curious about what they don't know. So what I want to say is that we've got two different mental models, one that doesn't see the system, the other one that only sees the system. And we need something that allows us to see the system and our humanity and to be in relationship. And that's the work that I've been doing around developing what I call deep diversity, which is bringing together the political, the systemic with the emotional and psychological so that we can still be in relationship with each other. Because right now, in this deeply polarized times, in a time where democracy is hanging by a thread, where the attacks on the political system are coming from everywhere, we need more and new and creative strategies and creative mental models that get more people onto the side of justice than less. So that's what I really want us to be focusing on, is how do we develop this? And one of the things that I've been advocating is that the mental models we've adopted from the side of justice come from the academic, which is useful, except for when it's not. What we have left out is the skill set of the school teacher. Job it is to break ideas down so that they are digestible. So my suggestion is that we need everything, not one way or two ways. So the mental models we need are really to help us discern both the psychological as well as the systemic. And in doing so, I think we're much more closer to moving towards the goal of beloved community. And that's what I think we really need to be working on, for me personally. And I say all this because I've made so many mistakes. I say all this because all of these things are me in action. I'm saying this not because I'm the finished product, but because I've made all kinds of mistakes. My ability to get to a point of discernment is because I've been confused. I've shut down sometimes people that I should have been more curious about. And I've let things go when I shouldn't have. So what I'm putting out here is that I'm imperfect. We are imperfect. Can we step into this project of beloved community with our imperfect selves? Because that's our bringing our whole authentic self to the process.
Thank you, Shakil. You have shared so much, and I believe people watching are going to take 1,001 things that they can begin to do to create a beloved world. I love that word, beloved communities.